Let's see if I can do Chapter 4 a little more justice than I did Chapter 3. I didn't think I'd see them again, but that night I did. I was in the beautiful lighted cave, and my focus was a bit clearer this time. The walls behind me were those of rice paper blinds that Brendan had in his bedroom. The cave's curved walls soared all around me, and it felt good to be inside, like feeling the sun warm on your face through the car window, even though it's winter outside. And I was aware of the angels moving about overhead, on the walls, on the high domed ceiling, wings aflutter, a pleasant thrum filling the air, and then suddenly one was much closer to me, and I knew it instantly that it was the same one that I had talked to before. "Hello again," she said. I still couldn't focus properly on her face. It was like that time that I went to the eye doctor and they dilated my pupils and I couldn't read anything or see anything up close. The angel seemed so near that she was just a blur of light. She was all black and white. I didn't feel afraid of her at all. Light radiated from her face. Her dark eyes were very large. No ears that I could make out, and her mouth was moving somehow sideways. Her face was divided by geometric patterns. "How are you?" she asked me. Each word felt like I was being caressed, something soft brushing my cheek. "Fine." "And your family? Holding up all right, I hope?" She was very polite. "I think so." It seemed I should say something back. How are you all doing?" "Oh, very busy, as you can see. Very, very busy, as always." "I didn't think I'd see you again." "Well, of course you'll see us again." I liked her an awful lot. She seemed so easy and friendly, and I'd never been very good at having friends. At school, I spent most of the time reading at recess or lunch. I did crosswords. I really liked those. I just didn't like the way kids talked to each other. I was not a popular kid. I never had been. "We're here to help, and we'll stay as long as we need to. We'll stay until our work is done." "Fixing the baby," I said tentatively. I wanted to make sure I understood properly from last time. "Absolutely. That's what all this is for." There was a very brief pause, and I looked around the beautiful cave, and the light alone made me feel joyful. "When will you fix the baby?" "Very soon. Don't you worry." "What I don't understand is..." I didn't want to be rude. "Go on," she said gently. "Well, how are you going to fix the baby? I mean, would it be some kind of angelic surgery? Did it involve spells or medicine or just some words of power? Would they touch him with their magical gossamer caresses that I was feeling now?" "Well," first off, "Well," she said. "Well," she said, "first of all, fix. It's a rather odd choice of words, isn't it?" Yeah, I laughed with her. "We talk about fixing cars or a dishwasher. This is a human being, the most glorious and complicated creature on the planet. You just don't go in there and repair him like an engine. It's incredibly difficult at the best of times." "I'm sure it is." "And in this case, quite impossible." "Oh," I said, surprised for the first time. I realized I was standing on some sort of fibrous ledge, and if I peered straight down, I saw the cave was much deeper, and it began to contract into this circle of bright light. There was a lot of fluttering activity down there, but the light was almost blinding. I preferred the softly filtered light through the walls up higher. I don't understand, I said. You said you could fix the baby. Fix, repair. These are just words, really. Let's not get hung up on them. What matters is your baby will be perfectly healthy and well. I nodded. Okay. It's just not something you can patch up with a bit of string and sticky tape. No, no, no. We have to do this properly. Go right back to the beginning of things. Go deep. That's the proper way to do things, not half measures around here. You mean going right inside of the DNA? I said, not still sure that I was following her, but I wanted to sound knowledgeable, maybe even impress her. DNA, aren't you a clever one? Yes, good, you're on the right track. And we'll go deeper still. That's where it will make the most amazing difference. Oh, you can make him better, I said, relieved. Of course we can. Be careful, though. Her voice was softer, confiding. There might be some who try to get in our way. I shook my head. Who would do that? You don't usually see them, but you know they're there. Immediately I thought of my nightmare, somebody standing dark at the foot of my bed, and how just a few nights ago in my dream the angels had come and burned him away like a mist. Just when I woke up, it was morning, and I felt really happy, and then, waking a bit more, I realized it was just a dream, and no angels were going to fix the baby. In the afternoon, Vanessa brought a big plastic bag and some hunks of an old wasp nest in it. She showed them to us at the kitchen table. Nicole got in there right away, touching everything. I held back. Looking at it made me feel like washing my hands. Is this supposed to make me feel less scared of the wasp? I asked. She shrugged. I just borrowed it from the lab. I thought you guys might be interested. Inside were rows and rows of little empty hexagonal cells. It's like a honeycomb, Nicole said. Right, said Vanessa. And it all starts with a queen wasp. See, she begins the nest. Sometimes it's underground, sometimes it's in a tree, or hanging from a branch, or under the eaves like yours. How does she make it? Nicole wanted to know. Well, it starts with just a little bit of wood fiber and saliva that the queen spits up, and then she makes a little stalk from the roof, like an umbrella, and on the underside a few little paper rooms like these ones here. The queen lays one egg in each of the cells, and it hatches into a baby wasp, Nicole said. Well, yes, it hatches, but it's not a wasp right away. She was just like a teacher. The slow, calm way she talked, it irritated me. But what she was saying was kind of interesting. The egg hatches into something called a larva. Nicole narrowed her eyes suspiciously. What's that? It's sort of white and wormy. It doesn't look like much. It's just got a mouth and black dots for eyes, and all it does is eat and eat. What does it eat? Nicole wanted to know. Well, I'm glad you asked, she said, and she really did look glad. Usually, dead insects. The queen might go and chomp the head off of a bumblebee and bring it back, or bring back the decapitated body. Wasps can kill insects much bigger than themselves. We saw one with a crazy big spider, remember? Oh, I did the wrong kid. We saw one with a crazy big spider, remember? I said to Vanessa. Whoa, said Nicole, impressed. So the larva grows, and then it seals itself in the cell with silk, and it doesn't eat anymore. It's not called a larva anymore. It's a pupa, I said, remembering biology class. I wanted to show Nicole that Vanessa wasn't the only one who knew things. Yep, she said, and even though the pupa isn't eating anymore, it's changing inside. It's transforming. And then, when it's all done, it cracks the seal of its cell and it crawls out. A full-blown worker wasp. She did that last part really well, acting out a giant wasp, muscling its way out into the open, pretending that her hands were a pair of hungry mandibles. Cool, said Nicole, looking at the cells in the nest. There must be so many of those guys. Except they're all girls, Vanessa said. Nicole looked delighted. Really? Yep, every one. And then they start building a nest, bigger, and feeding new larvae. More dead bugs, said Nicole. Yes, although once they're adults, then wasps only eat nectar. And they pollinate plants when they do it. It's not just bees that do it. Wasps are important too. Our planet needs them. So, what does the queen do now? I asked, now that everyone's working for her. Well, the queen just lays more eggs. I guess that's it. Nicole asked, do they all become queens? Vanessa shook her head. These ones are all sterile. What's that mean? Well, it means they can't make baby wasps. But at the end of the summer, when the nest is all finished, the queen lays her last eggs. She makes some males and some females who aren't sterile. And these females will become new queens and start their own nest next year. Finally, I touched a hunk of the nest. It had this rusty, dry feeling. Ew, it's ugly. Vanessa shrugged. I don't know, I think it's kind of beautiful. Everything makes nests. Birds for their eggs, squirrels make drays to sleep in through the winter, bears make dens, rabbits burrows. We don't make nests, said Nicole, laughing. Well, sure we do. Our houses are just big nests, really, and a place where you go to sleep and be safe and grow. He came right to the door. I was all alone in the house. Mom and Dad had taken the baby to the specialist, and Vanessa had left early to drop off Nicole at a friend's house a couple of blocks away. I was supposed to go pick her up in 2 hours. I was reading in my room when I heard the handbell that seemed so out of place on a city street. I tried to get back to my book. It was one that I really loved, and I sometimes read when I wanted something fun to escape into, but I couldn't concentrate. I just heard that faint cell of the knife guy's van getting closer and closer, and each peal of the bell growing louder. My window faced the street, but I couldn't get up to look. I just laid on my bed. The book, a jumble of unreadable words. Another peal, and I knew the van was right outside my house. I waited for the motor sounds to fade. But then, the bell rang next. It hadn't moved. The van's motor idled. I waited. Maybe someone across the street is getting him to do something. I felt like there was a shadow in my room. It was getting thicker. When the knock came, my whole body jerked, and it was not a polite knock. We had an old-fashioned metal knocker, and it slammed against the plate 3, 4, 5 times. I lay very still. I took a jerky breath into my stomach and tried to hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4... But I couldn't. I needed air. Slam! Slam! Nightmare, fear jolted through me. I wished the floor would slide open and my bed would go down into that safe panel that would seal me up and keep me safe. I gasped air and I slid off my bed and I commando crawled over to the window and pulled myself up to kneeling. I poked my head above the seal I saw the house opposite, a letter carrier going from door to door. And when I lifted my head, I saw the street. And then I saw the van on the curb a little higher, and I saw our lawn and the path leading to the front door. And there was no one inside the cab of the van. The knife guy was definitely in my doorstep, hammering away. Our next door neighbor, Mikhail, was mowing his lawn, but he was wearing headphones and didn't even seem to notice the knife guy. A few cars passed on the road. Slam! 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 The noise made red electricity in my head. Paralyzed, I stared through the window, and finally I saw the knife guy walking back toward his van, eyes peeping above the windowsill. I followed him. Halfway down the path, he suddenly turned and looked straight at me. Right at me in my bedroom, like he'd known I was there all along. With one of his misshapen hands, he pointed at his van. With his other hand, he lifted a knife and turned it to and fro so that the light caught the blade. It wasn't a normal kitchen knife. It was bigger, and it had this weird curve to it. He shrugged as if asking a question. Desperately, I looked over at the neighbor. He was still pushing his mower, facing our house now. He must have seen the knife guy by now. Why wasn't he calling the police? Maybe he just decided to ignore the crazy old guy with the big knife. The knife guy started to walk back toward the house, and I lost sight of him as he stepped onto the porch. I ducked down against the radiator, its metal cool against my cheek. My heart pounded so fast, I worried I might pass out. If he knocked again, I would just run out the back and jump the fence into the next street. But a few seconds later, I heard the van motor deepen. And when the bell pealed again, it was further away, and soon I couldn't hear it anymore. I went downstairs, my knees watery. Warily, I looked through the skinny window beside the front door, and lying on the porch was the big, strangely curved knife. You see it? You see the knife on the porch? It's a little mat outside the door, and it has a curved knife on it. It is very odd, Dad said, looking at the knife. I brought it inside and put it in his shoebox. Considering its size, it was surprisingly light. The handle had a good grip and felt right in my hand. I didn't need to touch the blade to know how sharp it was. Why would he just leave it there? I asked. Maybe it's just a sample, Dad said, to show us how good his workmanship is. I don't know. He's from a different time. Do you think we should call the police? Mom asked. We were in the kitchen. Nicole was watching TV. The baby had fallen asleep on the ride home from the specialist and was in his car seat in the living room. Dad grimaced and let out a breath. He's just a strange old guy. He wouldn't stop knocking, I said. He was probably just hoping that we had more business for him. He can't be making much money. I was just chatting with the Howlands, at number 27, and I mentioned him, and they looked at me like I was crazy, said they'd never seen the guy. I feel like he's been on the street practically every day this summer. Well, it freaked me out, I said. Mom put her warm hand on the back of my neck. Oh, that must have been so scary. It's just the way he kept knocking and knocking. I'm just going to put this somewhere safe, Dad said. It's really sharp, so just leave it alone, all right, Steve? Next time I see him, I'll give it back and ask that he not knock on our door again. He looked at me with a sympathetic smile. I'm sure he's harmless, but you were right to not open the door. I didn't know how to explain it to my parents, but the knife guy feels familiar. He felt like a nightmare. Unexpectedly, I thought of what my dream angel had said about how some people might try and stop them from taking the baby or making the baby well. And I thought, what if he comes back for the knife? The bright walls, the thrum of music, the shimmer of wings, and the angel coming to meet me right away. "Hello, hello," she said cheerfully. "I'm awfully glad to see you again." Well, she made it sound like I had a choice. "I just come straight here," I said. I liked how she touched my face when she talked, and I could see her a bit more clearly now. The big eyes were really enormous. Without pupils or irises, they were just pure darkness. And there seemed to be, in the middle of her forehead, a smaller dark dot, maybe a third eye, I wasn't sure. On the top of her head were two particularly thick whiskers, bendy filaments of light, and it was one of these that she touched my face with when she spoke, like a kind of bridge that allowed us to communicate. "Well," she said. "Well," she said. "There's always a choice. Always a choice. How are things?" Okay. Okay is a terribly vague word. You can do better than that, a smart boy like you. How is your family, your sister? How is the baby? Still sick, but they think an operation might help. They saw a specialist. She needs an operation, or he needs an operation on his heart. I see. Some part of me is very aware that I'm dreaming, so I'm bolder than usual. When are you going to make the baby better? My dear boy, we're working on it right now, around the clock. No lazy bones here. Really? How? As we speak, we're tending to him and nourishing him and letting him grow. He's gonna be so healthy. He's still very little, but oh, I can see he's going to be a real beauty. I smiled at the thought of his little dinosaur sounds. He's kind of cute sometimes already. Well, just wait until you see him properly. Wait until he's in the crib. I didn't understand. He's already in the crib. Not your new baby. I frowned. What do you mean, new baby? For a moment, it seemed that all the musical thrumming of the cage stopped. The silvery wings silted. We've already gone through this, she said. That's how we're fixing him. We're replacing him altogether. Replacing? Inside the lighted cave, it was still silent, as if every angelic presence were waiting for my reply. But I didn't... That's not what I thought you... I couldn't finish my sentence. Oh, Stephen, don't worry. I'm so sorry if I didn't explain it properly. It's completely my fault. Forgive me. It will all be so seamless. One day, and it won't be very long. Oh, I know it seems to take forever when you're anxious about something. You'll wake up and the proper baby will be there. That's all. Well, where will ours go? The new baby will be yours. I said, shaking my head, but the old one. Her head tilted. I'm afraid I don't understand your question. This one, here, right now, he won't be here anymore? What would be the point of that? You'll call him the same name, of course. He'll look identical, except no one will know except us. But the new baby, where does he come from? Well, we're growing him right now, aren't we? Right here inside our nest outside your home. That is the end of chapter 4. Creepy.